Hi there, everybody. Today we're going to talk a little bit about restoration ecology and some of the ways that conservation biologists use restoration to rebuild diminished populations, communities, and ecosystems. What is restoration ecology? That may be something that you're asking. Well, by definition, the science of restoration ecology um, is the research and scientific study of restored populations, communities, and ecosystems. So it's a very broad definition. Ecological restoration assists in the recovery of damaged or degraded ecosystems. The term ecological resilience indicates the inherent ability of ecosystems to recover without human help. So some ecosystems have low ecological resilience and some have higher ecological resilience. Ecosystem restoration has its origins in older, applied, or more utilitarian technologies that aimed to restore economically significant ecosystem functions, for example, like restoring wetlands to prevent flooding. Here is a trout stream, which can be a very popular tourist attraction. People go on fishing adventures and go out into nature to fish and hunt all the time. But here's a trout stream that was restored by using fencing to exclude cattle and by planting a bunch of native species to populate the banks. As concern for biodiversity grows and continues to kind of become more mainstream, so has the emphasis on reestablishing original ecosystem functions. Here's a flow diagram showing a scientific approach to restoration. It starts at the top with identifying the overreaching restoration goal. Next is evaluation of non-ecological factors like site logistics and financial resources. The establishment of a realistic restoration objective and evaluation of ecological factors are also included in the next step. A specific realistic plan can then be created. The implementation of the plan should accompany both pre and post monitoring. There are four main approaches that define outcomes when considering the restoration of biological communities and ecosystems. And those four approaches are shown to you on this figure here. On the y-axis, we have ecosystem function, with low being at the bottom and high being at the top. And on the x-axis, we have ecosystem structure, with low structure being towards the left and high structure being towards the right. Um, so again, there are four main approaches, and one is that no action is taken. You can see that that is one option, no action taken. When restoration is deemed too expensive, or sometimes if just passive restoration, not intervening, will work, sometimes that's an approach. So sometimes no action is taken. Number two, a degraded ecosystem can be replaced with a different type of ecosystem. The term rehabilitation applies if some of the original ecosystem function is retained without recovering most of the original species. Three, a partial restoration would result in some of the ecosystem functions and some of the original dominant plant species are restored. And four, in a complete restoration, the area is completely restored to its original species composition. Natural ecological pressures are reestablished to maintain the long-term resilience of the site, so to maintain it for long term. So, what does that look like? Well, here's an example of a highly successful urban restoration project in Seoul, Korea, that revived the original stream community by actually building an extensive park around the road that originally disrupted the stream. Here is an example in New York, in Staten Island. This is a public park that's actually built on top of a 20-year-old landfill. Restoration activities are ongoing to continue to maintain this site. The purposeful reintroduction of animals to a site can be an important conservation strategy. Rewilding is a concept that was introduced by Michael Soleil in the 1990s to describe the reintroduction of top carnivores to regulate the ecosystem from the top down. This results in what we've previously talked about and called a trophic cascade, if you can remember. The reintroduction of wolves to Yellowstone, I think, was a great example that we talked about previously. And this is an example of successful rewilding of an ecosystem. So I have posted an under 10-minute video lecture on rewilding in the UK that does a really nice job summarizing what rewilding is and how it works that I'd like for you to watch next. And in our next lecture, we're going to continue talking about rewilding by talking about Pleistocene rewilding, and specifically the Pleistocene rewilding of using extinct Pleistocene species. So some researchers and community activists have the desire to recreate grasslands from 11,000 years ago by introducing large grazing herbivores. And we'll talk a little bit about the woolly mammoth as a potential candidate for that in our next lecture. So thanks for listening. That was a little bit about restoration ecology to get you started on this week's module. I hope you enjoyed it. And as always, thanks for listening.